Hi, I'm Josh McDonald.
And I'm Miranda Materi, and we are Hand Therapy Academy.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about pain management. So many of our patients come in with a ton of different types of diagnoses that can lead to or involve a significant amount of pain. So let's talk a little bit about some of maybe our most frequent or favorite ways to address some of that. So, Miranda, what's kind of a go-to for you that if someone presents, maybe it's post-osteoitis fracture or polytrauma or something, what's your kind of starting point?
My number one starting point of things I always tell students is to make sure you validate their pain. So, a lot of times, these patients that come in with pain, they've been dismissed, they've been sent to you, they've been sent to pain management, they're being discharged because orthopedically they look good, but they're in this pain management. So, the first thing is I try to acknowledge it and understand it and really hear them.
Yeah, I think too many times, like gaslighting is the term now where doctors kind of like, it's not that big a deal. You just need to work harder in therapy or do aggressive range of motion. That's what you really need. But they need some sense of like someone saying, yeah, like, okay, this is a real thing. And we, like you said, validate it and appreciate it. I also like I'll tell students and whatnot to start by like trying to label and identify it and quantify it a little bit. That can be a helpful thing to give some construct to. Is it sharp pain or dull pain or when does it happen? And so we can kind of start to identify a little bit more details about it and help them kind of maybe define the borders of it a little bit so it's not something that's just amorphous everywhere, affects my life in every way.
Right. Do you hear my dogs?
A little bit. That's okay. Everyone loves
Okay,
puppies.
okay, sorry. Okay. And then I think on beyond that, then it's like, okay, what do we do next? We validated them, we're hearing them, and then I try to do things that kind of calm their nervous system. So a lot of times these patients, I try to make sure they're coming in when the clinic is not completely full. They can lay down maybe for their treatment, all of those sorts of things.
And deep breathing things too, like getting their system to kind of dial down this fight or flight response can be a helpful way to just take the edge off of things. And not everything we do for therapy needs to be my hands on your hands and pushing the threshold, pushing the tolerance of range of motion and strength. Sometimes it's let's just do something restorative today to maybe make you feel like you can walk out of here in a little bit less of a hyper alert pain state. And maybe that's deep breathing. Maybe it's laying in a quiet or dark space because they don't maybe have the permission to do that anywhere else.
Right. And then maybe discovering why they're having that pain. Was there a nerve completely released? Is there something else going on, that we might be able to explain pathologically beyond that as well? Like sometimes we know it's just maybe a centralized pain response. So with those, we're not going to be able to fix anything, but we need to rule that out first or help come to that conclusion.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk some specifics here. Let's say the patient has like a standard distal radius fracture, but they have significantly increased pain. Maybe not necessarily on the CRPS scale. We've done other podcasts about that, but they just have way higher pain than you would maybe anticipate. What are some of the things that you would do to kind of help um, work through either the mechanics or the specifics of that?
Um, I think, similar to what I said, I think things that really will calm their systems, and then trying to start things gentle and gradually, like really build that trust with that patient, and then let them know that what you're going to be doing with them, so they don't go into that fight or flight response again. So, hey, I'm going to stretch you. It might be a little uncomfortable. If it's too much, let me know, because you really want them to take on the role of managing their own pain, right? And you want them to have control over it, where you're not just coming in and moving it as hard as you can. You're letting them have say, hey, tell me if it's too much and I'll back off.
Yeah, so much of our medical world is the patients are usually the subjects, and giving them the kind of the opportunity to be the director of their care and saying, "You tell me if this is too much. We need to challenge your structures and put some load through your tissues. But if it's too much and I excite an inflammatory response, that's no good. So you tell me what's too much, what's okay, and have that very open dialogue with them."
Yeah, I think that's very helpful and helpful in building trust in these patients. So they're going to first know that you listen to them. Okay, great. She's listening to me. She's hearing me. He or she is listening to
Yeah.
me, hearing me. Two, I have control over what's going on. They're not going to push me further than what I can tolerate. Um, And then three, you've built a great therapeutic relationship and they're likely to come back. I think a lot of times if we go in and we just do like the doctor's like, be aggressive as hard as you can, then a lot of times these patients may never come back to us, right? We may never see them again. And we're just another person in their list of people that has kind of pushed them off or maybe negated their symptoms that are very real to them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think some of the tools we can offer are lost if they don't come back. And so there's things that we can do to say, like, hey, we can help lessen your sensitivity. We can improve your nervous system's processing and all that. But if they don't come back, it doesn't do them any good.
Right. And then we're not really solving the problem.
Yeah. So as far as like specific treatments go, we have a fluidotherapy machine in our clinic, and it's not something we pull out a ton. But for this type of patient, the CRPS patient, sure, but this patient who, maybe I'd put them in a hot pack. This is just kind of something that is so conceptually foreign to our patients that it's kind of an interesting thing to trial, and it's almost kind of an dials down that notch again, and I can say like, hey, this is going to be warm. It should be, the medium is all over, and you kind of move your hand gently. It's out of sight. We put a little mirror on the side so you can do kind of some graded motor imagery stuff with it, but it's just this very different kind of feel, and that novelty can be kind of disarming and get them maybe more movement actively done in there than they would even outside of this medium.
Yeah, that's a good point. I sometimes forget about flutotherapy, and we have a unit too that sits in the corner. So I think that's a good one. I think another one is them doing something positive with their hand. So a lot of times I'll say, "Hey, grab some grapes or M&Ms or something that you can have a really positive experience." So you're feeding yourself. You like the taste of the food, and you're using that involved hand in the activity. So anything functional that they really enjoy doing can be a positive experience and kind of negate that negative feedback loop that's going on with their pain response.
And including that functional aspect is huge. Like, we like to give out sensory kits, which for us is just super simple little squares of strapping and Velcro or whatever stuffed in a Ziploc baggie for them to use at home. But doing that in daily activity stuff, getting that texture. And I'll say, like, when you're driving the car, rub that hand on the upholstery of the passenger seat next to you. Folding laundry, rub your hands on the towels that you're folding, and try to get lots of positive, good functional interaction with that hand so that your brain doesn't have this constant negative connotation with all of the interaction. And it's also desensitizing at the same time.
Right. And then a lot of times these patients, I know you've seen this in probably a lot of our audience has where they come in and they're guarding their arm, right? Like their elbows bent, their arms in at their side. They're not moving it. They're not using it. And so that's my first thing is usually I'm telling them, hey, get that arm down. Really try to relax. Be aware of what you're doing with your arm. Because a lot of times they're not even aware. They're so used to guarding it and protecting it. And then when they do something with that hand, I'm like, that's amazing. Good job. Like carrying your purse in. I'm so, look at you. You're carrying your purse again. So you're just constantly trying to provide that positive feedback loop. So they're recognizing that they're getting better and they're doing more than what they were doing the time before.
Yeah, and watching them, like, we have this big bank of windows that we can see the parking lot in front of our clinic. And I like to tell therapists, new grads, whatever, that watch them when they walk in. Watch to see, are they opening and closing their car door, carrying their purse? Because sometimes they'll carry their purse in, set it down, and say, I can't use this hand for anything. I'm like, well, okay, let's talk about some functional things that you can use it for. I saw you carry your purse in, or giving them that positive feedback. Hey, last couple of times you didn't, and this time you did, and draw their attention because they may not necessarily realize, hey, I am in the process of getting better. Even though I still have pain, there are observable, measurable things that are getting better.
Yeah, and it can be light stuff, right? Like, oh, I locked the bathroom door with that hand. Oh, I brushed my teeth with that hand. Or like sometimes I'll be like, oh, did you pet your dog with that hand? Like sometimes it's such simple things that they're just not even aware of, or they're not even aware that they're not trying to use that hand.
Yeah, yeah. I can't tell you the number of the visits that we end with, and we're like, okay, everything's great. They stand up from the table, and their hand goes right to that guarded position again. And we're like, okay, pause for a second before you go reschedule. Where's your hand at? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course. We already talked about that. It's just automatic, and it's just our body's attempt to protect it. So we'd have to be that broken record for them sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of information. It's just scratching the surface there a little bit, but hopefully some of those ideas give you some ideas to use in your clinic. If you have any other great pain management or ways to work with these patients and help them get through their issues, certainly comment below. Or you can, if you have any questions, you can reach us on Instagram, handtherapyacademy.com, or our email, same thing, it's handtherapyacademy.com.